And after a long hiatus, welcome back to another episode of Travis's Musings. And today we're going to be discussing some pretty cool stuff. Obviously, the Beer Bet Champion is completed with yours truly winning his second Beer Bet Championship, and Jaron coming in the bridesmaid again. So sorry about that, Jaron. Better luck next year. So speaking of next year, we're also going to be discussing our 2024 strategies today. And but before we get into that, just a quick disclaimer. Again, none of us are financial advisors, fiduciaries, et cetera, et cetera. We really think it's important that everybody does self-education and self-learning and make sure you understand why you're investing, how you're investing. So without further ado, let's get over to the strategies. Okay, and so as you can see here, I've got the 2023 strategies pulled up. In addition to the CSNI, and we'll take a look down here at how each of us performed. Again, you have the Travis 2023 172527 is your Beer Bet Champion, coming in at 39.26%, plus whatever BlackRock decides to grace the iFund with this evening. If you're if you're confused as to why the iFund changes from the close from the EFA, there is a different video, different discussion that we have about that. So, but everybody did pretty good. Matt, 2023-24 was the lowest of the admin strategies. He's using the same strategy this year as well as next year. He lost to the index funds by just a couple of percent here. Jaron and I beat the index funds by about 12.5%, pushing 40% there, each of us. And Larry and Dina both were in the low to mid 30s, beating the index funds by 5 to 7%. So if you have taken a look at my video that describes the importance of beating the S&P 500 by just a single percent, you can imagine that beating it by between 5 and 13% is a pretty exceptional year. Essentially, Jaron and I were able to get a free year out of the average of the S&P 500 by beating it by more than its yearly average, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and pop over to the 2024 strategies and kind of take a look. So the question has come up a couple of different times asking why I chose my strategy for 2024 and what the differences are between my 2024 and 2023 strategy. The strategies that I've gone with for the last couple of years have been all equity strategies, meaning that I don't spend any time outside of the CSNI. And in 2024, I'm actually going to be dropping the iFund temporarily, potentially permanently. If you haven't heard, there is a change to the iFund mixture coming in sometime in 2024, and in typical TSP fashion, they have not let us know when that is going to be. So until that happens, I'm just going to go ahead and spend all my time in CNS. And as you can see, ironically, it returned almost 44.41% minus today, which I think it was in the S fund, and the S fund dropped 1.2%. So call it 43.2% for the year. Still, that's absolutely exceptional, right? I mean, again, beating the index funds by that amount is a rare instance and something that we should all be striving for all the time. But again, so let's go ahead and talk about an all equity strategy versus somebody like Jaron's strategy. So down here at the bottom, you can see we have a statistic called time in stock percentage. So Jaron spends 47.78% in stocks, and the inverse 52.22% out of stocks. And so if you click on Jaron's strategy here, and this is a feature that everybody has for free on their when they get to the TSP calc landing page, and he spends 45% in G, 7% in S, in F, 12 in C, 20 in S, and 15% in I, as opposed to myself where I spend 100% in both in either the C or the S fund during my year. I decided to go to an all equity strategy purely for a couple of reasons. Number one is that I decided to change the way that I viewed investing my 401k as opposed to trying to maximize my gains. I decided to try to beat the index funds because that seems to be the benchmark with which all people decide if someone is investing wisely or not. Because if you can't beat the index funds, more times than not, that's not to say that you'll never lose to the index funds, but if you can beat them more often than not, you're doing better than a buy and hold strategy. But if you can't beat them more often than not, you're better off in a buy and hold 50-50 strategy. And so if I can do that on a year after, year over year basis, I'm going to continue to try to do that. So, sorry, it's a little easier to see for my OCD eyes in this format here. In 2020, I did a lot of second guessing with my strategy. I caught the initial downturn sitting in G Fund and during the COVID, I think it was February-ish time, and deviated from my strategy quite a bit and ended up just getting my rear end handed to me in the market that year. And so I decided that I really needed to make a change and really stick with what I thought was a more effective way to beat the market, which is kind of when I started to gravitate towards an all equity strategy. And it's really paid off. I won the beer bet in 2021, and I also won the beer bet this year in 2023. And it should be noted that it's really easy to be happy and cheerful and boastful during a bull run. I don't care if you are a stalwart buy and holder, you are a toe dipping seasonal guy, a swing trader, a long-term investor. It doesn't matter. Most people do well during a bull market, and everybody thinks that they have the answers. I've seen posts on a variety of TSP groups online touting the percentage returns and whatnot. But really what it all boils down to is, how did you do against the index funds? Did you beat them or did you not? And if you didn't beat them, then regardless of having a better strategy, maybe you have some work to do on that strat or whatnot, or you accept those returns as they are. And so be cautious as you go forward, because we're not always going to be in bull runs. We're not always going to be in bull strategies. And so sometimes, like my own strategy, I mean, it lost 16.99% last year, but it also beat, the C and the S fund. It did lose to the I. You take a look at some of the other down years where it lost 2% here in 2018, but it beat the equities, right? Same here in 2008, during the housing crisis. It lost 23%, but it lost significantly less than the CS and I funds. And really, that's really what it boils down to for me, is I can accept the losses, but I really do hate being out of the market during the gains. So that being said, let's go ahead and scroll down and we'll take a look at the strategies as they compare to each other. There's just a few deviations between them. Oh, that's right. Let me go ahead and remove these CS and I so it's easier to read on the trading. We know where they are all the time, right? Oh. All right. And let this all load in here. Okay. So as we kind of scroll down here, that all of this stuff up above is free. But as we get down into the trading day calendars, as well as the trading day comparison, these are all the premium items associated with the TSP Calc membership. Again, that's $24.99 a year. And it allows you to have the trading day calendar, the trading day comparison, as well as the SMS and email alerts for your chosen strategy, which if you don't know how to set that up on your own account, I do have a couple videos on how to set up your watch list. So one thing I do want to note, which is continues to be a question people have sometimes, is don't forget up on the calculator and on the trading day comparison tool, these are trading days, not calendar days. So it's not the 5th of January. It is the 8th, because it's the 5th trading day, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at the strategies. So obviously myself and Matt spend all the time in equities, and so we won't be rotating out. But the first divergence that we're going to see right off the bat is with Jaron and Dina. against Larry. And now Jaron and Dina's strategy is extremely similar, and so you'll find a lot of those similarities as we go through. Larry's has some divergence points, and the first one is in January. So Larry spends the majority of January in the S fund with a quick stopover in the G, where Jaron and Dina are out for nearly the entirety of the month, which tells me that they're looking at January as a month that's probably not going to be real positive in the market. I guess we'll see. As we kind of scroll down, you can see we do have some divergence here from all three of them in April, which I think is one of our biggest divergences from that group, where the Jaron spends the whole back half of the month in the G fund, where Dina dabbles a little bit, and so does Larry a little bit there. So one thing I did want to note actually was on March is that this is kind of where you can see some things starting to line up. Again, my strategy is does not spend any time in G or F, and so you can notice here I'm in the S&P 500 for the first half, which is typically less volatile than the S fund or the small caps, and so that is paired up here with right on par with Jaron, Larry, and Dina, who spend the first half of March in the G fund. So, and as we kind of scroll down here, we can kind of take a look. Everything is kind of staying pretty similar. Again, until you get down to October, we've got some slight changes here between Larry, Dina, and Jaron. And then the other primary divergence happens when we get to December, where Larry is going to spend the first 6 days of the month in the S fund, where Dina and Jaron spend significantly more time in the G. So that's kind of what we got going into 2024. The one thing I'll note too, I kind of forgot to mention this, is that I always build my strategies every year with the seasonal builder. And to kind of give you an explanation of what the seasonal builder does, it is what we talk about when we discuss creating the best possible strategy, right? It doesn't take a look at all the strategies that are already there or already built in the system. It takes a look at all the data we have, and it builds the strategy based on the parameters that you input into the builder. So for me, I put in best mean, uses CNS, and has 0% in I, F, or G. And I click best fit, which best fit, obviously, you're going to want to, that allows you to stay within your moves as you transition between the month to month, right? So when it does that, I did that obviously prior to all the data being in for December. It recalculated and gave me what would be the best fit strategy for 2024 based on my parameters. So that being said, that's kind of what we've got going here. And if you guys want to continue the conversation on Facebook, feel free to comment underneath this post, and feel free to share it with your friends. Thanks, guys.